All right. Good morning. Let's go ahead and rise, face the flag if you got one. Otherwise, just rise and be proud. All right. Okay. Just checking a few things here this morning. All right, that's better. Looks like we're live here this morning. Hope everybody's doing great. Have a great day going on. Trying a little different angle on the camera. And as always, once again, thank you for joining me this morning. Thank you for everybody that's subscribing to the show. And of course, please like the videos. Please share the videos. Let's just keep it moving. Please let me know anything in the comments section that you'd like to talk about. I'd like to see that dialogue get started. And always, when we're broadcasting live here, I really look forward to anybody wanting to call in. Please call in this morning at 715-352-0801. And we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. In particular, I had gentlemen respond to my nomination papers and my platform on Facebook, indicating that this is an important election, and then indicating that I should change my position on voting and running for Congress. And would really love to hear from him here on the show. Would love to talk to him here on the show. And talk about the fact that these are historic times, and that we need historic leaders, and that Tom Tiffany's not stepping up. I mean, awesome. He went down to Madison and met with Vice President Pence on the runway. Be honest with you, I don't care. I don't know how that's important to what we need to get done here. And if he's not going to provide any leadership as to what needs to happen, as an example, for the people of Wisconsin relating to unemployment, relating to health insurance, related to getting back into the world, and getting meaningful information from the people who are controlling the data we're getting. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. And if you want to know the kinds of things I'm doing, you can always check out my website, and that's www.trailblazer19.com, where I have videos highlighted in my platform section under Social Security, jobs, and Second Amendment, and we're continuing to produce more so that you can actually physically see me and hear what I have to say about that. And by watching this show, you'll find out even more. What I have done in the last 3 weeks is I've been emailing our senators and assembly people a copy of an emergency bill that I want to read to you this morning, so you can understand better the kinds of things I'm trying to advocate and provide leadership on. Starts out an emergency bill for consideration by the Wisconsin State Assembly. Whereas the President of the United States has declared a national emergency, releasing billions of dollars to be made available to the states. Whereas the Governor of Wisconsin has declared a state of emergency, implementing a safer at home policy. Whereas the state of Wisconsin has a budget surplus in addition to dollars provided by the federal government. And added to that is they have a surplus in unemployment, the unemployment trust. The government of Wisconsin has an obligation to include its citizens' financial needs in any decision made on behalf of the state of Wisconsin. Therefore, may it be resolved that the following emergency changes to unemployment benefits be made effective immediately. Employers to keep any employees let go or laid off in the last 30 days on their health insurance plans. They will provide the same benefits as if currently working full-time and at rates paid when working full-time. Employers will not be allowed to contest unemployment benefits. Employees let go or laid off in the past 30 days will have all vacation, holiday, and paid time off paid to them immediately, and that's also like in the form of PTO. Unemployment benefits will continue indefinitely until the employee attains unemployment with compensation equal to or greater than the most recent employment. Unemployment benefits will not be changed to 100%. Unemployment benefits will be changed to 100% of the weekly pay of the employee before being let go or laid off. Employee may work in a capacity while receiving benefits with benefit amount reduced by amount earned only. Those working in high risk or essential service capacities will not have their benefit reduced. Employees receiving benefits will not have to meet job search requirements during the state emergency and for 30 days after the emergency has been removed. These measures will serve to help the citizens of Wisconsin take care of their families during the crisis and to provide the best chance for economic recovery after the crisis. In addition, this will ensure all decisions are in the best interest of our state and do not impact the citizens' financial well-being. So let's talk a little bit about my thoughts related to this. It's much more difficult if your decision has to include financial support. So far, all the decisions by the state of Wisconsin have not included financial support for the people that this whole thing impacts. And it's really easy just to simply shut down the state and just say, hey, figure it out yourselves. Also, it's not the state's responsibility, or they can't just make these decisions and rest on the fact that the federal government's going to jump in. I mean, they don't want to have the federal government tell them what to do in terms of reopening, but they want the federal government to make sure that the people are taken care of financially so that they don't have to do that. You need to understand that a lot of the decisions that are being made by our legislators right now are all tied to elections. Most of them are up for re-election, or they're going to be facing re-election shortly hereafter. So none of them want to make any decisions. The legislature has the power to overturn the governors in most states. They just haven't done it. Why? Because they don't want to have that vote out there for people to come after them if something happens contrary to what the decision is. Example, so the legislature here in Wisconsin says, Governor, the heck with you, we're reopening the state. They vote, they overturn it, and they've made that vote. And all of the legislatures have voted now to reopen. And then tragically something happens that is newsworthy and is negative to that decision. Don't know what that would be, but it would be negative to that decision, and then they're being held accountable for it. It would impact their ability to get reelected. But what they don't realize is that their lack of action, or their action to go take the governor to court, still doesn't solve the problem. They need to put a bill together, pass a bill, and put it in front of the governor. Or they need to do what the statute says, and that is they can overturn his decisions, and they could stop the lockdown right now. All right, so let's go to the sections here. One, employers to keep any employees let go or laid off in the last 30 days on their health insurance. Again, this if they're all concerned about the businesses, they're giving the businesses money. The businesses have money. People who are laid off and supposed to come back, why wouldn't they just leave them on their health insurance? I mean, that's a good way to communicate to your employee you plan on bringing them back. I mean, when you dump them and then don't give them any way to support themselves and you take their health insurance away, you pretty much told them they're not coming back. I mean, why would anybody go back to an employment situation like that where they can't rely on the employer? Employers will not be allowed to contest unemployment, and there's going to be employers out there that are doing it. I want to hope that employers are doing the right thing, but that just doesn't always happen, and we need to protect the citizens first. And then employers are holding PTO because they say they laid you off. So they're saying because they're not going to contest your unemployment, you can go get $370 a week. But some people might have 4, 5, 6 weeks of PTO, which would go significantly far in terms of being able to get through this crisis. But the employer doesn't care. They just don't have to pay out that bulk sum of money. And again, the citizen, the employees are paying for this crisis. And then you can't force people to go back to work for Walmart who have lifestyles that are dependent on an income over the last 10 years that they've made before. I mean, you're going to totally disrupt their lives. They're going to lose their homes. They're going to lose their cars. It's not going to be helpful, and they're going to have problems with their credit, and we're going to simply just devastate the economy. Natural occurrences like that, yes. This is not. This is historic events that are impacting people not by their own doing. So if the governor's making that decision, he needs to make sure and protect the citizens. And then, we need to let people go back to work. I mean, you can't penalize them for trying to get back to work and take away their unemployment because they're working. So somebody is unemployed and wants to go work at Gander Mountain or now Gander Outdoors, and they're going to make $10 an hour when they're used to making $40 an hour. But they're still trying to work. They're still trying to get the economy back up. We need to protect that. We need to make sure people are encouraged to go back to work and not have to, again, have their finances impacted at a level to the degree that they're going to lose everything. And then getting back to work is not going to be instantaneous. So the minute the emergency order is lifted, you can't just turn it back on and say, okay, now you got to go find a job. It's going to take some time for these employers to see where their revenue streams are going to go back to and the demand in their business, and then decide who they're going to bring back. So it could even be 60 days before anything like that happens. Meaning, if we get the order off by the end of this month, it could be July before anybody starts to get meaningful employment back. And again, you can't devastate the economy simply because you've got to say this staunch position. And in no way am I advocating that we need to have huge increases on unemployment for prolonged periods of time. I mean, you just have to create something that's realistic for the people to get back to work. And that's what's important here. We have the money, we have the revenue. When revenue comes back, we'll have additional money. Employers are still paying in to unemployment, so we still have a revenue stream there. If we have to go into the negative for the short term to get the short term taken care of, but on the long term that money will come back, then that's the point of a rainy day fund. So if you've got $2 billion stashed away, this is when you're supposed to be using it. And Tom's done nothing. Tom hasn't talked about unemployment. He hasn't talked about health insurance. He doesn't have a bill out there. He has a letter telling the governor he's a bad guy. I mean, that doesn't do anything. How is that defending us? And that's the point I'm trying to make, is everybody's all gung-ho and everybody's doing all their thing, and Tom's out collecting money. So he does a great job collecting money, right? So, kudos to him. But what is he doing? So he's got all this money. He has people he's obviously paying with this money, and they're not doing anything. They're not doing things, and we're going to talk about a little later in the show, related to how the data is coming out of the state. Why don't they produce better data? And why isn't he producing that kind of information? All he's really, focused on is making sure he gets elected on May 12th. And to be honest with you, there is a problem there because we had a Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin that should have won hands down. He didn't win. And if Tom continues to provide no leadership, how's he going to win? He's got lots of money, but people are going to get angry and they're going to get tired of his bullshit and they're going to want something different. And they're going to look for historic leaders or people they believe can be historic leaders. Well, Tom's had his chance. Tom's had his chance to jump out and be in front of everybody. I mean, I've seen Sean Duffy more than I've seen Tom Tiffany. So on that note, again, I'm asking for your support and your support in terms of nomination papers. Please go to my website, www.trailblazer19.com, and let's get going and get me on the ballot, and so I can run against Tom here in the primary for the regular election. If you go to our nomination papers page, you can download the nomination paper, which is this document right here. And again, you fill out sign your name and fill out all the blanks, and you fill this out as the person collecting the signatures. If you have other people at home who are eligible to sign, please ask them to sign and help out get me on the ballot. Of course, then you'll also have, when you print it out, the official documents, and there's also instructions put together by my team here. And also, if you want to look, there's a really cool interactive map that you can print out like I have, or you can zoom in and see and make sure you're in the district if you're watching this and you're living close, because the district is so huge, sometimes it's hard to understand that. And then, of course, you've got the sample bill on there. This one really isn't correct. I'm sorry I'm showing it this morning, but I didn't get a chance to try to print it out. But there is a sample that shows how to sign, how to fill out, showing as if it was done, showing how the bottom needs to be filled out, and being able to, get some direction on that. But as always, give us a call. I mean, the campaign number, again, is the same as the one for the show, and that's 715-352-0801. So again, Opela For Wisconsin, please check me out on Facebook. We're putting together groups for the counties, and we'll be starting hopefully here next week doing town hall meetings each evening for a short time live through Facebook. And I'm looking forward to people joining that and being part of that, and keeping things moving. So with that, I'll end my campaign official announcements and do my normal disclaimers. Again, I am Michael Opela, and I approve this message, and then got to put up the disclaimer for the committee, paid for by Trailblazers for Michael Opela Committee. And that's that. Now, moving on to, of course, the way I look at things, I really believe you got to keep your points in front of people. Sometimes it seems redundant, but if you listen to a lot of talk shows, they say a lot of the same things, only maybe in a different way. And I think we spend a lot of time talking about the Declaration of Independence, talking about the Bill of Rights, talking about the Constitution, but we don't really spend any time reading it. We don't really spend any time researching it. And I would encourage everyone who sees this, in the times that they're, sitting at home and maybe they don't have anything to do, because I'm hearing about a lot of different things that are going on. I'm trying to find cells to put a crop in the ground, to start seedlings, and I can't find them because the stores are saying everybody bought them because they got nothing to do and they're planting gardens, which is awesome, but makes it hard for me to find them. So, still working on that. So the Declaration of Independence. I'm going to read the Declaration, some sections of the Declaration again this morning. Hang on just a quick second. All right. So, here we go. July 4th, 1776. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. That's about as clear a message as it gets, and it's the message we need to send to anybody who has been elected into any office, and educate them on the fact that they have a duty and a responsibility that they've agreed to uphold these principles that are written and adopted by us in this country. They don't have any right to infringe on them. They don't have any right to circumvent them. And yesterday, of course, we heard from the governor of New Jersey, who doesn't care about the Bill of Rights. And the decisions that are being made don't include any Bill of Rights consideration. And if we again look at, I read Article 1. Amendment 1. I'll read it again. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Amendment 2. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So the Second Amendment and the First Amendment are being, hammered all the time. And under the First Amendment, we see people are being arrested for sitting on the beach, for going to church. There was a story about a woman being arrested at a park. And we always have to take that with a grain of salt because we don't know the full details, right? So somebody could be just embellishing that. The internet is difficult at times because we try to hope that the information we're being given is true and not necessarily just being created to get likes or get views or have something go viral. So we always have to try to research that information. The point being is that we're seeing a continued effort to subvert the Bill of Rights, to subvert the Constitution, to not have to consider any of these founding principles we have in this country, and they just step on it all day long. And as an example, everybody is up in arms about demonstrations. I mean, in this country, whether you like it or not, we have the right to decide whether we're going to put ourselves at risk. We do it when we get in the car. We do it when we get on a plane. We do it when we skydive. People who have businesses that the airline industry makes a decision to have anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 flights in the air an hour, and all of those planes are at risk, and everybody on them is put at risk. I mean, people sitting in one plane could get hit by another plane. A plane could crash. A plane could have a problem. I mean, all kinds of things we make decisions on at large scale that we don't make these kinds of decisions we're making right now. So people are going to demonstrate, and I predicted this 4 weeks ago, that you will not be able to keep people oppressed, and as far as I'm concerned, we're being oppressed for this period of time, and not have them rise up and say, okay, enough is enough. I mean, it's our right under the Declaration of Independence. So they're exercising their right to demonstrate. And I don't really understand how someone who says they're an American and that they believe in the founding principles of this country would go after someone for going out and demonstrating. And then for a governor like in Michigan who's off her rocker, is saying things like all of a sudden these people are going to be the reason why we've got to extend the date. So understand something. The governors right now are operating in a 60-day window. So, for example, in Wisconsin, the governor's got 60 days that the legislature is giving him for some untold reason, but he believes he has 60 days, even though the statute says the legislature can pass a law and overturn it at any time. But he's going to operate in this 60-day window, and he's going to go through it and exercise his power and make a big deal out of this, and it's politically motivated. It don't believe for a second it's not. And of course, some of this is motivated to try to help people not get sick, but there are lots of ways to handle this. And the way it's been handled is not right. And we need to make sure that when we exercise our right to vote this year, that we make sure any legislature or legislative body or any legislator who did not step up and provide leadership is voted out. And I can tell you I'm disappointed that Bob Culp is not running again. He lives very close to me here in Stratford, has a very nice business there, and he has decided not to run again. And that's disappointing because of all the legislators. I mean, for the entire state, he is the most vocal. He is the one that's advocating that this is wrong. And he is trying to push a message out there that at least goes similar to the message I'm sending. Of course, I always want more. And I wish Bob would be a little more vocal and come on the show or get out on the news networks and talk about his position and make sure people understand just how what his opinion is in terms of the fact that we need to get back to work and we need to reopen the state. So in addition to that, I think you've probably seen that Facebook is taking down posts for demonstrations. And there's also articles out there indicating that Facebook is colluding with governors who are telling him to take these things down, or telling the company to people that these posts need to be removed. You should be infuriated. You should be afraid. You should be calling your legislators at a national level and saying, what the hell is going on? So now we have a socialist state where the government can control the media. And just like we did with airlines and larger companies that control or influence this country, they have to be regulated at times. They have to be reminded that if they want to operate in this world, they're going to have to make sure they are non-biased in their application of the First Amendment, and that they need to make sure they're not instituting policies that violate that. And Facebook taking down those posts is a direct violation of our rights under the First Amendment and a direct violation of our rights under the Declaration of Independence. We're trying to demonstrate against the governments that are making these decisions, because remember, the federal government isn't instituted anything. They've provided some guidance on how to handle each state. The governors have gone over the top and instituted policies that are over the top, and the president has even talked about it. And that needs to change, and it's only going to change if we do something about it. Biden and shadow government is next on our list. Hang on a second. Trying to find my... Yeah, here we go. Let's listen to this about shadow governments.
Would you like us to build you an automated Amazon store which allows you the freedom to live your best life? Now, while most people...
Welcome back. The media is just getting more and more ridiculous with their anti-Trump hatred. Listen to this one MSNBC host drop all pretense of objectivity and actually give Joe Biden advice on how to counter the president during this crisis.
Do they need to do it in a bigger way? What did you just call it? The President's Daily Clown Show? That's his press briefing. Should Joe Biden be counter-programming that? Should he be creating his own shadow government, shadow cabinet, shadow SWAT team, and getting up there at a podium every night saying, here's the crisis we're in, here's what we need to do to address this?
And here's Sleepy Joe's latest attack on Trump's leadership.
These are people who are frightened and they're looking for leadership. And what bothers me so much is the President of the United States doesn't take responsibility. The President of the United States acts like this is nothing is his fault. Nothing is his responsibility.
Terrible. All right. Dana, I'm not really sure who that was on MSNBC. I don't think she was a primetime host because I've never seen her in prime time before. So she shouldn't really be giving that much of an opinion. I guess she's during the day or something. That seemed a little out of bounds in my opinion. What do you think?
Jesse. I actually, like, regardless of what hour she's on, it's such a bad idea. It is such a bad idea. It's so terrible. I mean, we've just spent a week and a half talking about how there's confusion about whether the federal government or the governors are going to reopen the economy. And now we all agree, okay, so there's collaboration and the governors help make decisions based on some guidelines to get from the federal government. Look, I understand that Joe Biden is in a bind. That's bad. But what she is suggesting, one, it is a terrible idea if you are a patriotic American, because you cannot have two presidents at the same time. You have one president at a time. And I'm sorry they're in this predicament where they have to try to campaign during a pandemic, but that's the situation they're in. This idea is like what I used to do with my sister when I got home from school. After I had an after-school snack, I would make her play school with me. And this is like playing government. You don't do this for, it's like make-believe, and I think it would just make terrible, terrible sledding for Joe Biden.
Yeah, well, you played school and Gutfeld probably played doctor. What do you think, Greg?
I think I saw that joke coming like a frisbee in the desert, about 10 miles away. All right. What I find interesting is that Joe literally is in the shadows. That's what's so funny about her commentary.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Nobody, Joe, Nancy, Chuck, Liz, AOC, nobody can answer the question, what would you do differently than Donald Trump? What would you do when? When would you start the economy? How would you do it? They can't say it because they know they have a 50% chance of being wrong. So they're petrified of actually raising their hand and going, oh, I have an idea, let's do it now. They can't. So instead, they're not going to step forward. What they're going to do is you're going to wait for President Trump to flip the switch or the dimmer, and any collateral damage that there is, then they will leap forward and they would go, ha, we wouldn't have done that. No siree, we wouldn't have done that. You did that too late, or you didn't do enough, or you did too much, or you're an autocrat, or you didn't take control. But they will not tell you when they're gonna start. They're not gonna tell you how they're gonna start because they're too scared of being wrong.
You're right, because I think Biden stuck his neck out early on the travel ban and he was dead wrong. Juan, grade Joe Biden's, I guess, performance in this quarantined campaign. Would you give him an A, a B, or C, and then why would you give him that grade?
Well, I think that in Biden's case, it's a matter of getting out in public and not allowing the virus, which has changed the whole campaign landscape definitely for everybody on either side here, not allowing himself to be pushed out.
So the link to that YouTube video is on our site, on the channel here in this video, down in the description. So please go ahead and check those videos out. We're leaving multiple links in the description to numerous different videos that we've had over the last few days because they're important and I think they send a good message, and it's a way again to garner additional information related to this to make decisions. I mean, I really advocate. I'm not asking you to agree with me 100%. I'm not asking you to agree with me at all. In fact, I hope there are a lot of people out there who don't agree with me so that we can have a dialogue and then make a decision. And that's what's not happening in this country. You've got a small group of people making decisions, ignoring people who would provide alternate ideas and thoughts and decision making, and they're not coming to a consensus. The governors are just exercising their will, exercising their power, being dictators, shutting down the states, impacting people's lives, their businesses, everything for something that is just not something that we needed this extreme measures for. And we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. Social tracking, hell no. What are they thinking? You need to do more research on this for yourself personally, but social tracking works like this. You're going to be tested. You get tested positive. You're going to have to provide a list of all the people you've come into contact with, their names, their addresses, their phone numbers. How is the government going to get in touch with them? Then they're going to contact them and say you are immediately quarantined for 14 days, which is going to probably cost everyone their jobs. They're not going to be able to go out and look for new work. And if it's bad enough in the company's eyes, they will take away all their PTO. They won't pay them PTO. They won't pay them any severance. I mean, you literally now will be snitching on all your friends. Hell no. You need to make sure your voice is heard on this. Hell no. And there is no wiggle room on this. There's a different way to handle it. People are going to get sick, and we need to stop acting like it's going to be the end of the world. Again, if there isn't something there to help people who are going to be at most risk, then they probably need to isolate, and they need to make plans for that and figure out how they can make that happen. And we need to help them with that. But we're not going to create this socialist environment where, like China, where people are, turning people in so the government can do something with it. Hell no. I won't be doing it. All right, COVID-19 update, and this is one of the reasons I will never do it. One of the things I'm very upset about on the CDC page is it seems that in order to keep the numbers high, they've included something called probable cases. So if you remember from my original shows, I came out and showed this document here. And this document shows we have 38 million to 54 million cases of the flu every year. There's somewhere around 26 million people who visit the doctor for the flu per year. Hospitalizations are anywhere from 400,000 to 730,000 people. 24,000 to 62,000 people die from the flu every year. And still, we're not getting data that correlates how we're seeing flu pass through. I mean, it's like all of a sudden the flu has just stopped. Well, here's the problem. They're now putting in here total cases includes a certain number of probable cases, and total deaths include probable cases. So now they've totally changed the data for showing its progression by throwing in something that wasn't originally there. That way their numbers get high. So how many probable cases are truly in these numbers? Because you can't trust it anymore. They're not being transparent. They're not showing the original tracking numbers against what they're thinking may be going on probably. They want to just keep these numbers high so they can justify the decisions they're making. And if you remember, I also showed this chart. This chart here represents a chart that shows the flu. So if you look at this, we've got the flu graph here, and these are hospitalizations, 500,000 hospitalizations. We're only at 776,000 cases in the nation so far, against 54 million on an annual basis with the flu. And that estimates anything from like we're having with COVID, where people show minor symptoms and they get better. They don't show any symptoms at all. They just feel like they have the flu. Well, we're not even close to that yet. Medical visits. There's no tracking of actually how many people go to the doctor and then are told, hey, listen, man, you got the flu. Go home, sit tight, sleep, and take care of yourself. Versus 730,000 hospitalizations. We were already at March 7th at over 500,000 hospitalizations, and this data is gone. It's not being updated. And then, of course, somewhere between 24,000 and 62,000 people die a year. So that, if you figure between the two seasons, that's about 32,000 people per season, meaning that that would be a benchmark for what we're seeing. Well, we now have 41,750 deaths that are being reported, but they now include probable cases. So how many of those are probable? So are we at about 32,000, which would be flu, and we're on the downside of this? This isn't acting any more than what the flu is. So this is important to this process, that you make sure you're getting accurate data and accurate information. And you should be demanding full transparency, not only from your local government, but from the governments around the country. All right. Well, I'm going to leave you with food for thought. And my food for thought today is, what has Tom Tiffany done in the last 6 months? So ask yourself that question as you hear from me and other people who are running against Tom, and make sure you have a clear idea on what that looks like. And as always, have a great day. Thank you for joining me. Please subscribe, like, and share these videos, and we'll see you tomorrow.